Welcome to Fit Life Coaching. Today I want to talk about why thoughts can be meaningless. Before I get into that, my name is Andrea and I'm a certified life coach. I have designed this channel hoping that I can share information that helps you shift your mindset so that you could live a more fulfilled and authentic life. All of the ways that you can work with me is in the drop box below. You could also follow me on my social medias by following those links. And please, if you like my content, like and subscribe. I would love to have you back. And so now let's get into why I think thoughts are meaningless. We have about 70,000 thoughts a day, most of which we're not even conscious of. So for the purpose of this video, I'm really only dealing with the thoughts that we are conscious of. So we are just the observer of those thoughts. They're not really attached to us. The way they become attached to us is by what we attach to them. So Eckhart Tolle talked about this in The Power of Now, how we just observe thoughts. And then we build onto those thoughts, right? So we could have a negative thought and then we could link other things to it and we start to create a story that attaches to that thought, right? And also keep in mind that your beliefs are just thoughts that you have thought over and over and over. So when you're attaching that story and when you can realize that you really are just the observer of those thoughts, it can really give you mastery over those thoughts in a lot of different ways, because you could now start to change that story or that narrative that you've been telling yourself for however long you've been telling yourself, or you can just observe the thought and then completely detach from it. So how would you go about doing those things, two things, right? So Carl Jung always says that you can't change the unconscious until you bring it to the conscious. So if you are consciously aware of a thought, then you now can think about whether or not that thought, sorry, I'm gonna move the camera a little bit, getting some glare, there we go. Sorry about that. You can now start to question the validity of the thought, right? Or you can start to say, well, I think that because I was told that in my childhood, or I think that because I have this belief from this moment in my life and this moment in time. And you can now start to ask yourself the questions of, is that belief still valid? Is that belief true of who you are, or is that just somebody else's story you took on of you? And you can ask leading questions that can help you discern from the thought a little bit. Another way that you can deal with it is you can just not link anything to the thought at all, right? So you can have the thought and you can observe it and say, well, that's an interesting thought, and just leave it at that. And what you're doing at that point is you're kind of reprogramming your subconscious to not continue to go to that thought. So you have the negative thought and you say, well, that's an interesting thought. And over time, within a few weeks, your mind will just stop going to that thought pattern. It will just see that it's no longer registering the same sense of emotionality that it once was. And so therefore, eventually that thought would subside. The other thing that you can do is start to be your own narrator of your own story and create a new story of the thought, right? So even if you have this thought and you could start to say, well, that's not a true thought or whatever, you can start to actually revise it and replace it with the thoughts that are more in line to the person you are today and more in line to the version of yourself you're trying to create for the future. And so that's why I say really thoughts are meaningless, because we have the power to observe them, and then we also have the power to either re-narrate them and build a new story of ourselves, or the power to, sorry, camera, getting a lot of glare today, sorry about that. or we have the power to change the thought altogether or just completely detach from the thought. And so those are some ways that you can start to take control over your mindset and rebuild some new thought patterns. When you stop a thought pattern, eventually you will stop having that pattern. That's where I talk about like almost reprogramming it by saying, well, that's an interesting thought. And because you're not linking it or letting it go any further, it will just eventually stop being a pattern within your thought process anymore. And so those are some ways that you can start to take hold of some of your thoughts, begin to reprogram them, and create more of an authentic and true story to where you are at, what you're trying to accomplish. And so have some ideas of that too. What is it that you want to accomplish? And honestly, when you come across a thought, ask yourself, is that thought even true? Because we only live in the world that we are conscious of, which means that we can change what we are conscious of at any point. So just be aware of that as you embark on this journey of really starting to master your thoughts and really starting to pay attention to what you're thinking, and then explore different ways of dealing with those thoughts, and explore whether what you're telling yourself is fact, or if it's somebody else's fact, or if it's a fact from your past that really no longer exists. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope this was information you could use. Please leave some comments below. I would love to know your thoughts on all of this. And remember, life is a practice.